Welcome to Midlife Matters. I'm Marie, and each week I'm joined by my friends Julie and Mindy to talk about all the topics keeping women in the middle years up at night. Listeners, today we're talking about cultivating deeper friendships in midlife. Join us as we share ways to connect, pitfalls to avoid, and examples of our own successes and failures. Let's get started. Listeners, today we're talking about friendship in midlife, and specifically cultivating deeper friendships in midlife. And today it's just Mindy and I because Julie's away this week. But I know that Julie would have a lot to say on this subject, so hopefully Mindy and I can do it justice.
I hope so. We'll do our best, okay?
Yes. But whether you're new to town or have lived in the same place for a long time, friendships and meaningful relationships are something we all long for. But the art of friend cultivating can sometimes be scary, hurtful, and confusing. And we think it's going to get easier in midlife, but it really doesn't. And Mindy shared recently her real struggle with this, and we thought we'd take the opportunity to really delve into this together. How can middle-aged women dealing with crazy hormones and teens and adults and grandkids go from first to low to I'd call you in an emergency and let you see my house when it's not clean type of friend? And Mindy, you did share so beautifully a few episodes ago about how you were struggling with this, and we did think it would just be a great opportunity to kind of delve deeper. And so I know that this is something close to your heart because you've, out of any of us, Julie and I, and you, out of the three of us, you've moved the most and had the most opportunities in your life. You could probably write a book on friendship or making friends.
I don't know about that. But yes, friendship has been a major theme in each of our moves.
Mm-hmm. And so you've had a lot of practice, and yet still practice does not make perfect.
It does not. And so even after, this came out in that podcast, the three of us were kind of commiserating. You and Julie haven't moved as much as I have, but we can all relate to the feelings and the emotions, and like even meeting someone new, you're still putting yourself out there. So I think this is a topic, no matter what stage or season or what your life history has been, we all want friends. I think we'd all say that. We could agree with that statement. We all want friends, and we want good friends, not just surface level.
Right, right. Well, let's start with the basics, meeting people. And I think that sometimes we just run out of a list of places that we can even meet people. So where do you find that you meet the most people when you move around?
Well, to even think about this, I thought, well, this really needs to be genuine. This is person specific. If you go to church, meet people at church. You're going to be going to the grocery store. You're going to, if you live in a neighborhood, it's being open, like it's looking up and it's seeing and it's being intentional, for people. But it really does have to be something that you couple with something that you're actually interested in. If you don't enjoy reading, don't go to the library and join a book club. But you know what I mean? But if you enjoy reading, maybe a book club is a great kind of avenue for you. Going to the gym, if you like to work out, there. So I think that you could probably meet people pretty much anywhere. And to be perfectly honest, one of the best things that I have incorporated into this season of life is volunteering. So even if you're not finding something, that you want to do, maybe you're passionate about something, and just starting to serve in any area with anybody will put you around another group of people with similar interests. Yeah.
Well, yeah, you'll have that in common. Yeah. I was thinking the first thing I think that usually comes to mind is church for me. But I want to have the caveat, because I think so many people listening could say, well, I tried going to church and I didn't meet anybody. And I would say that's even more true in the past 5 or 10 years. You can, at least I've found it to be true. You can go to church and you can go every Sunday. And by the end of the year, you could have maybe said hi to a few people, but never moved beyond that. I think that you have to get involved in the church. And so you can't just show up on Sundays. if you don't join a small group or you don't join some kind of Bible study or go to some women's event or do something, a lot of times you could go for years and never meet anyone.
Yes, that's exactly right.
At this time of life, that probably applies to all the things that we're going to talk about, because I found that when you had young kids, if you went to church, it didn't matter if you joined a lot, because you're going to meet people when you're dropping them off in the nursery. You're going to meet people when you're dropping them off at Sunday school. You're going to meet people because you're taking them to things. Because you're involved. So I would say that at our stage of life where you're not taking little kids around anymore and they're not kind of your in, if you will, it's even harder.
Yes, it is. And you're so right about, I mean, it still takes a lot of courage. You know, it's almost like, yes, get the courage to show up, but then also, you know, put yourself there. And again, looking up, looking out, being open, and then maybe being the person to engage in conversation, looking for people that are also looking for you.
Now, one of the things that you've talked about so many times over the years, and I was just going to wonder if you could kind of give how this happens. You've said so many times you've met people at the gym. I went to the Y for years. I never made a friend that I took home from the Y, you know, like that once I wasn't at the Y anymore. How does that come about, Mindy, in just like a place like a fitness center?
Okay. So let me break this down. If you're in the weight room and you're doing, machines by yourself, you're not going to meet people.
Okay.
And in fact, it's actually gym etiquette to not interrupt people's workout. Right? When they're really like going hard and heavy and they're by themselves. What I mean, the picture that I'm seeing in my head and that has worked for me is joining a class, like a studio class. Or I know you do Burn Boot Camp or did maybe. And so any type of class structure where you're doing the workout together, then it's just small snippets of conversation. You know, you start seeing people enough that you're like, oh, okay, well, like, what's your name? And then I have from those classes, well, hey, I'm about to go grab coffee around the corner. Want to join? You know, do you have time? Or, you know, and that's how it's happened. And it's really a little bit over time.
Yeah, that kind of transitions into our next question, because it says, how do you meet and start building relationships? And that's, I think where you said where it moves into the building relationships part is when you ask someone one-on-one to do something. Like you could go to the same class for 3 years and know each other's big life events and say hi when they come back from vacation and all that. And when you quit that class, still just move on with your life. Unless you have gotten together one-on-one, I think, and done something outside of that class. Would you agree with that?
Oh, absolutely. And I know that even the class that I joined at the gym, they have been together for a long time and I'm new. However, one of our ladies is battling cancer. For instance, the class, just recently, they invited the class to come help decorate the square for ovarian cancer awareness. We were invited to join in on a walk to support our friend. And that's an invitation for me. It's an invitation to get together outside of class. And so by joining together, you know, in an effort to bless friend and support our friend, I'm able to join in on a group that's, you know, pretty tight.
Like you said, there's going to be different needs or different opportunities that come up, and you have to be brave enough to reach out and say yes to those, because those can all be very intimidating. You could easily say to yourself, oh, I don't want to intrude. They've been together a long time. I don't know the situation as well as other people. Like there's a lot of things you could tell yourself.
Oh yeah. And I will delve into that a lot more later, because the things that we tell ourselves a lot of times prevent us from deeper relationships, and they're not always the truth.
I don't mind showing up somewhere. And I don't mind all that initial introductions and get to know you small talk. Like I don't mind that. And I feel like I'm pretty good at putting myself out there and finding out about people and saying hello and I don't know, finding points of commonality and stuff like that. But I don't feel like any of that really starts a relationship. I do think that I only start to build a relationship when I might see that person one-on-one or have a conversation outside of the group. And so, what are some of the things that you might ask someone to do?
So depending where you're at, it's joining together whatever activity you are at and then adding one thing to it, essentially. So if you're at church, you've met a couple that you hit it off with in Sunday school class, for instance, then you say, hey, would you, we're walking down the street to go to lunch. Do you guys have plans? So if you're at the gym and you're walking out together, I mentioned the coffee invite, if there's some place that's easy or whatever, sometimes it's going for, I was going to go for a little walk after book club. Do you have, just a short walk? And so just anytime you can couple one thing and just add like a little bit to it.
That's a good idea. Yeah. I like that.
Because it needs to be manageable. It's almost like how to eat an elephant. You can't except one bite at a time. And so with friends, it's the same way. It's small drips. It's small little incremental steps.
Well, and you're not asking someone to look at their calendar and pick out another time. They're already committed to that one thing. So you're basically just extending it.
Yes. You extend an invitation. And even if they say no, ask again. Like it may genuinely just might not work out right then, but they might be interested in you still.
All right. Well, we do know not everyone we meet or try to get to know is going to become a close friend. But what are some of the signals that you think kind of show that someone's willing to go deeper?
This is one that I enjoyed thinking about. And it seems so obvious, but an invitation is a very obvious, open door. Like, I'm interested in you. I'm trying to get to know you better. I'll say, but, and this is a big but, you have to say yes. And this is where it could get really scary for you because, for instance, Marie, say you didn't know or play pickleball and somebody says, hey, I play pickleball. Would you like to join me? And you're like, going through the list of reasons why this is a terrible idea. Okay. You're thinking back to your gym days and getting beamed in the face with a volleyball. I mean, I don't know. But what I would encourage you to do is say yes to everything. No matter how scary it seems, show up, show that you're interested in the person. You're not saying yes to the activity. You're saying yes to the person. And at least it gives you an opportunity to see, is this a person that I want to continue to get to know? Not necessarily, is this an activity that I want to do? So just to kind of look at it for what it is, it's an invitation. They would like to get to know me. It scares me to death. Or, you know what I mean? Like, they don't have good bathrooms there, or I'm going to lose sleep. I mean, I tell you, there's a million and one things that can go through your head when someone says, hey, you want to, and you're like, oh no, I don't want to do that.
Yeah. You have to kind of be willing to stretch yourself a little bit. I think that I need to remember and maybe remind listeners, and maybe they already know this, but like, it's a big deal to extend an invitation to someone that you don't know, because you don't want them to think that your activity is silly or stupid, or you don't want to be rejected, or you don't really know what kinds of things they like. Or, I mean, there's all these things. Just for someone to even ask you to do something probably took some mental gymnastics. And they probably went back and forth in their mind thinking, should I even bother? You're
so right, Marie. And this is where two people can really lose it. before it's even started, because if someone does get up the courage to invite, that's a big deal. Like a big light bulb should go off. Like your ears should perk up. And you're like, oh, I have been invited.
Right.
No matter how chill it seems, it's an invitation.
Sure.
So, if you say no, they may not ask again because it took so much courage. And I don't want you to live in fear of this. I'm just saying there will be times where you have to say no to an invitation. But I think that there's a genuine way you can make sure that that person understands like you didn't want to. And then also know that now the ball is in your court and you need to invite the next time.
Okay, so an invitation might be one signal that we don't want to ignore. Another signal that you could look for is that they share something with you. And a lot of times our initial reaction is almost not disparagement. I'm trying to think of what the right word, but we're kind of like, why would they share that with someone they barely know? Well, maybe because it's a signal that they are open to friendships, or they are looking for deeper friendships, or maybe you just seem like a really trustworthy person, or I don't know, but I think we've been in that situation before where maybe someone has shared something and we're like, oh, I don't hardly know them. But maybe that's a signal that they are willing to move the ball along.
Yeah, and that's what it is. It's just, everyone's afraid. Everybody. Okay. It's like you hear about bugs. So no, I don't think they're more afraid of me than I am of them. But with people, yes. Everyone feels insecure sometimes, you know, and a lot of times, especially with somebody new.
So I think you could listen to like their topics of conversation and things that they were willing to talk about and kind of sense whether they have the potential to be a deeper friend or not.
Right. Yeah, that's a great one.
Any other signals you can think of?
The other thing is having deeper questions. We've talked about questions and how valuable questions can be in a relationship. So just listening for and also being willing to take it to the next step, even in a conversation. Being aware if someone's trying to take it to a next step in a conversation.
Or if they ask you deeper questions.
Yes,
I think sometimes we can feel a little caught off guard. We're like, oh, that might be a little personal of a question. But that's probably a signal also that they're trying to get to know you at a little deeper level.
It is. And you can tell by someone's eyes, their body language. Are they looking at you? Are they distracted? Are they fidgeting? Are they shifting, trying to kind of move? Or, are they in the middle of something? Because they could be. Or have they stopped and planted their feet and given you their full undivided attention? I mean, there's just a lot of cues that you watch for, and I know we joke a lot at church. Everyone's, everybody's fine on Sunday morning, but when a deeper, more, conversation is going to happen when someone does kind of sin and ask you a deeper question. That you can have a more meaningful, deeper conversation. Like it's not just a passing, how are you? You genuinely want to know.
Right. You've talked about this before. Have people having room for you. What do you mean by that?
Well, if an invitation is given, if body language is given to show, an openness to a deeper relationship, you can tell pretty quickly how the invitation is handled, how the deeper question is handled. Are they hurrying away? Do they seem interested? Are they pretty much busy all the time? You can't ever seem to schedule maybe with this person, and they don't reciprocate, like if you really are reaching out there and they've been so kind, they've said all the right things, but you kind of notice that they never have time or they never even try to make it work. Like they're not asking you or saying, hey, I'm sorry, I'm so busy. I happen to be free, that week. I'm sorry it's in, a month, but you're important and I'd like to get that on the calendar. You can tell. You can tell. If they're not trying, it's okay. Like It really is. It's okay. And I'll talk more about how to handle that when that happens, because it will. It will happen. Not everybody is going to be that person that's willing, able to go deeper.
Yeah, because there are some pitfalls. There are some disappointments that we're going to run into when we're trying to do this. There are some ups and downs. Like you were saying that if somebody is never reciprocating, or they're always saying no, and you've asked again, and they don't put out there a different time when they might be able to do it. It is okay, but it's also normal for us to feel rejected and bad about that. Like no one in that situation's like, oh, that's okay. I mean, you might say that on the outside, not okay. But inside, it's kind of demoralizing. So like we are going to run into some pitfalls. Like you can't be trying to make friendships without falling into these demoralized pits. At least I don't feel like you can.
Yes.
Yeah. And so I was thinking about, there are pitfalls that we face, like people don't reciprocate. Either conversationally, like you share something, they won't ever share anything with you. You ask them a question, they don't ask you the same question back or anything remotely. Or logistically, like you ask them to do something, they never ask you to do anything. Or maybe you shared something with them, and a pitfall is that they turned out to share that around and tell other people, and they turned out to not be trustworthy, or they're very unreliable. They say they're available and they're going to do something, and then it's not just like, oh, well, this emergency came up. It's like a continual thing. Like there's just all these pitfalls that you kind of fall into, and they're all disappointing. And when they happen, they all make you want to swear off even trying to make any new friends.
Yes. Yes. It's really hard. I think this is one of the cruxes. I feel like this is the meat of our episode, if I could say that. If I could go ahead and say that before I answer even how to handle it. This is what I've learned the most. It's all about recovery. It's all in your perception. It's all about your perspective. One of the biggest pitfalls that we face is self-pity. It is saying, I'm the new one. They should. Don't they know how hard this is for me? Why wouldn't they invite? I can't invite. I'm the new one. Again, like no matter what your realm is, self-pity can come in and lie to you and give you every excuse to step away from people and the world. And you will be a very bitter and unhappy person and very lonely, I might add. You, as soon as you open yourself up to someone, you will be hurt. You will be offended. A couple of things that might seem obvious, but aren't when you're experiencing them, is other people that you're trying to get to know are allowed to have other friends. That shouldn't bother you. That shouldn't bother us. You want that. In fact, you should have other friends. So the fact that you're trying to get to know one person, it's okay. It's okay if they're getting together with other people. That doesn't have to hurt you. That means that they're a friend. We can see that in a good way. Also, just the other thing is lowering expectations for what you think they should be doing. You can't control that other person. Not thinking that they have to exactly act the way you think they should act, and then coming up with reasons why they're not going to be a good friend because they haven't fit your mold. Again, this all comes back to self-pity. I mean, there's just a lot of self-pity. There's a lot of excuses we give ourselves just for letting go, for not trying, for not showing up at that event that you didn't feel welcome at. It takes a lot of courage and bravery. And I'll say even being able to, in air quotes, forgive offenses. Because thinking the best about that other person is what's going to lead to a deeper relationship, giving them space and grace, not expectations.
Yeah, those are all very healthy things to do. Let's talk about, how do you get to the healthy point? maybe just for a few minutes? Because I know that initially you can have all these feelings. Does it just take like some time by yourself? Does it take probably some prayer and, thinking about it? Like, you were saying, that the key is the recovery. And so there is some recovery. It's not an instantaneous thing.
Yes. And I'll use myself as an example because it's the only one I can speak of. The day that we podcasted and I was struggling, I had been on social media. I had not been invited to something and it was hurtful. The first thing I did was get off social media. The second thing I did was realize that my friends can have other friends and put that in perspective, that it doesn't mean I've been rejected because I didn't get the invite, wasn't included in that particular event. Getting off social media was a healthy choice for me at that point because I couldn't handle it. That fear of missing out is really big, Again, I hate to say forgive, but forgiving people for maybe not seeing you or, you know what I mean? Like knowing that friend maybe they're not out to get you. They're not trying to hurt you, like you're, and remembering that the Lord sees me. Also praying. One of the prayers that I'd been praying for a while, and I'm watching the Lord work it out, is having eyes to see people that need me like I need them. I'm a lot more open to friendships than someone who has a really good community in place. Does that make sense? I'm not on the same playing field. Like it doesn't even compare. So I can't compare myself with that. But I can have eyes to see who the Lord, has for me. And I've had some really amazing lunches recently. I've been more intentional over the past month of, when an invite goes out, I can tell when their eyes light up, when they get excited, and then it's exciting to find those people. So it's okay. Like it's okay to not always be the one that's included, because it will lead you to the place maybe where you can be.
Right. Yeah. That recovery is almost a personal work. It's something that only you can do for you.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you want to be a good friend, So often if you're dwelling in that self-pity, you're not a very nice person to be around.
True.
Okay. So when you are at peace and you have joy, people are attracted to that. Plain and simple. I know.
I know. Yeah, because one of the things that we kind of wanted to talk about was how do you recover from hurt feelings and have the courage to move on? And there's no just one pat answer for that, but you're not going to recover by swearing off, making chips, and not answering your phone.
Because Marie, what are our options? Okay, I've gone here in my head. What are my options? Do I give up and never talk to somebody? Because that's what you want to do when you've been rejected, even one little time. You're like, I'm tired of trying new things. I'm tired of putting myself out there. It's exhausting. It's exhausting. It takes a lot of courage. I have to recover afterwards because I have been anxious about putting myself out there. And then if you're rejected, it's so hurtful. It really is. And you do have to take time to recover, forgive, let go, get to a good headspace and try again.
Yeah.
Because we were made to be in fellowship and community with other people.
Yeah. And listeners, as you're listening to this, I think so many times when we're in that place of feeling rejected, we think we're the only one that has these feelings. And so hear Mindy and I saying that we feel these things. And you as a listener, we know that you felt those things. Like, no one's immune to feeling those things. Some people may feel them more often than others, but everyone feels them.
Yes. And this is the lie. I tell you, this is a lie to believe that there's not people or a group out there for you. There is. Don't give up before it gets good. And even with certain people, just write them off after one time. You know, it really takes some things to like really get in sync with somebody. And I've been able to make friends after 3 years of being in a place where I'd met them at the beginning and we just didn't click, you know, like maybe life circumstances or kids or didn't line up, but maybe it does later. So
yeah. I can remember when I was in my 20s, talking to somebody who had made friends with somebody in our circle who was a little standoffish. She was a little hard to get to know. And I remember asking her about that. And she said, well, I just kept asking. She goes, even if she said no to something, I would just ask again. And I just kept on asking. And finally, you know, and I don't know that this person was always saying no because they necessarily were too busy or had other things. I think they just really were kind of hard to get to know. And so you could also be running into just personalities. Some people require a little more work to get to know, but if you can break through that, they really are a great and loyal friend.
Yes. And I'll say in friendship, once you're getting to going together, sometimes you take turns doing the heavy lifting. You know, you really do. Sometimes you're the one pulling along and sometimes you're being pulled. So it's, yeah.
All right. Well, let's talk about an example of a friendship that's more recent that you feel like you've gone past the surface. And what does this look like? At first I thought, oh, I don't have anything to share. But then I got to thinking about this conversation that I had a few weeks ago. So I am friends with some people, 2 women, and we usually get together as 3. And I know one of them better than the third. So I know one of them better than the other. And usually, if all 3 of us couldn't get together, then we just wouldn't get together, because if one of the one I knew better dropped out, then the other one and myself would kind of find excuses to not do it. And so one morning, I don't know I think the other person dropped out like really last minute. And so there really wasn't any logical excuse that you could give. And so she even said that she said to her husband, well, I don't know how this is going to be because we never get together just on our own. Like, not that she was like, she was upset, but just like she didn't know if we'd have enough to talk about. And I was sort of thinking the same thing. And then we got together and we talked for like over 2 hours. And we even said in the course of that conversation, like, oh, I kind of didn't know if we'd have much to say to each other because we never meet one-on-one. So that was maybe like, I don't know, several months ago. Then the same thing happened a few weeks ago. And I think maybe that person had to leave early. And so it was just me and the other lady there. And we started talking, and then she shared some things that were very deep. And I remember feeling like, you know, if the other person was still here, she wouldn't have shared those things because that person already knows that story. And, you know, like, but like different conversation happened because there were only the 2 of us. And I felt a lot closer to her after that because we had both shared things. And I guess it just took even someone that I've known within a group of 3 for a few years now, until we've had a couple one-on-one conversations with no one else there as a buffer, we weren't really getting to know each other.
Yes.
I mean, past a certain point.
Yeah, that's such a cool story though, you know?
Yeah.
Because sometimes it takes time like that.
Yes. Yes. And it takes individuality. And maybe that's only a me thing. I don't know. But I find that I need to have had one-on-one conversations, I guess. I don't know.
Yes. Yes. And see, in midlife, sometimes you have more space and sometimes you don't, depending on if you're caring for parents or you have grandchildren. Because sometimes you're in a season that's so busy, you really want friends, but you don't have time. You really don't, have the time or space for that. You're busy being a caregiver or mom or grandma or daughter. That's neat. You both had the space, the time, and then the opportunity, and you took it. And so I appreciate you even say, like, even the intrepidation, like, should we still meet? Like, yeah. I mean, again, it's that hesitation that I have to put myself out there, or this might be uncomfortable, or we've never done this. So getting past our preferences or our comfort level is really hard. Harder to do sometimes.
Right. Yeah. But it's worth it, to do that. It's worth the uncomfortable. It's worth moving through that.
Yes. And I'll say, like, it will pay off. If you can pay into being uncomfortable set a time limit. I mean, like, for the next month, even, I'm going to say yes to anything that anyone asks me to do. And I'm going to be uncomfortable. I'm going into it intentionally knowing that I'm going to put myself out there. I'm going to be exhausted. And then you see what seeds get planted, see what fruit starts to grow, because something will come back. Something will. May not be what you expect. Right. I mean, I've been different Mindys everywhere I've lived, depending on what opportunities and people have been available. And so you really do look around and you're like, okay, well, what's here? What's for me?
Right. Well, Mindy, I know that part of this, I don't know, I guess I can't separate this whole topic from being a Christian, because I do feel like human tendency is to just shut down and blow everything off, and we're done, and I'm not trying anymore. And I just don't feel like God gives us that option. Like, even if we want that option, I don't feel like God calls his followers to that course of action. And so, what have you discovered about maybe like what the Bible has to say about this subject?
Oh my goodness. Well, the entire Bible. I mean, you're so right. First of all, you're so right. I mean, this is a spiritual issue. To come into contact with other people, to be around other people, to open yourself up for hurt, for rejection, to choose to love someone, to choose to serve someone, to choose to work alongside someone for a common effort. This is all biblical. And so I only picked out 3 passages, very simple. The first is self-explanatory. Ecclesiastes 4:12. Though one may be overpowered, 2 can defend themselves. A cord of 3 strands is not quickly broken. There is strength in that. When someone is down, when you're trying to do something, again, explanatory. It's practical. It's practical to join strengths, both spiritually, mentally, physically, all of those, to join with someone else. So much more can be done. Proverbs 17:17, a friend loves at all times. And I'm just going to quickly go into, well, what does the Bible say love is? Because this is the crux of everything. 1 Corinthians 13, we'll start in verse 4. Love is patient and kind. Love does not envy or boast. It is not arrogant or rude. It does not insist on its own way. It is not irritable or resentful. It does not rejoice at wrongdoing. It rejoices with the truth. Love bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, and endures all things. And later on, it says that love keeps no record of wrongs. I wasn't going to read the entire passage, but if we can come back to what love does and love the people that we're coming in contact with, even loving them enough to let them go if they're not for you, if it's not the time for you to be close with that person. That is a loving choice. And there's no bitterness there. There's no baggage there. They are free. You have freed them up to be who they are. And you're free to be who you are. And so this really is where it all comes from.
Yeah, I was thinking in there when you were reading about resentment and holding a record of wrong. Yeah. I mean, this could be another whole sub podcast or whatever, but like within deep friendships, you're going to offend each other, or you're going to say something, or they're going to say something, or they're going to do something. You'll be like, I didn't think they'd ever do that, or I didn't think they'd ever act that way, or man, she was so rude, or, but like giving people the benefit of the doubt. They might have had a really off day. They might be under a lot of stress. They might not realize how they're coming across. They might have just said something stupid. Like we all have those times, and not to be just like writing each other off. And that's hard to do because we all don't want someone to do that to us when we make mistakes, but yet we're maybe not as patient with other people. Right.
We are those people. And so it is really good to come back to a humble place of gratitude and realizing your own sin, realizing you're not perfect. Yeah. Offering grace to others.
And just understanding too that everybody has different, reactions to things or ways they do things. And I think so many times, I feel like especially over the last, in this cancel culture, maybe we're so quick to say, well, I could never have a friend that thought that, or I could never have a friend that said that, or like just giving people a little bit more grace. Because someone else is probably thinking the same thing about you.
Yes. And I'll say social media really does blow this out of proportion because you could meet someone in a book club, really hit it off. I mean, really hit it off. Add them as a friend on Facebook, see the things they've posted and not like them at all on social media. I'm serious. This has happened to me. And I have to separate the person that I know in person that I've with what they have projected online. And I would say let the social media thing go because this is a loving choice that you can make with that person. I have had to mute certain people with, especially during, hot topics or political seasons, or things like that. It can get very heated online with the people that you love in person. Like you would never go there if you were face to face. But for some reason it happens online and very hurtful. And so if you're building friendships, maybe just, kind of know that could be a trigger or that could be a separation. Because my view right now is I'm looking for all the ways I can connect. I'm not looking for ways to disconnect.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So if I'm on social media, I'm going to find plenty of reasons why me and so are not going to get along.
That's true. That's true. Yeah. So definitely. I mean, probably social media, not probably, most definitely is harmful to friendships in so many ways. One, seeing things that you may not have been included in. Two, maybe seeing them post or have, attitudes or, things that you wouldn't have necessarily agreed with. Like social media probably isn't deepening very many people's friendships.
Right. I mean, when you are at an activity, you're going to something that you have in common, right? There's a shared experience. When you're online, there's experience. You're looking for all the ways that you're different. Yeah. So it already is set up to separate.
Right. Yeah. All right. Well, Mindy, you've shared on the podcast before that you have been where you're living for 2 years now. 2 years, and you're going into your third year?
2.5.
Okay, 2.5. Yeah. And you're in your third year. And it's kind of your intention right now to go deeper on friendships. And so as we wrap this up, I want to encourage people that, a few weeks ago when we recorded, you were in a tough spot, like a spot where with my personality, I would have been like, I'm done. At least for like a day or so. I would have been like having a little pity party. Yeah. And then you've had to work through some personal recovery. And now you have been having some deeper conversations at lunches and things. I guess I just want to just make listeners aware that this is like an up and down process, because it's not going to be all uphill from now either. It's going to probably have a down dip. Like, you just have to be in it. Yeah. That's just life, kind of.
It is. And if I could also testify that in my recovery, I came up with this episode, the questions, and it was part of my healing, was thinking about all of these questions that we've just talked about. And I have been able to experience a rest, a peace, and an ultimate freedom that Christ has given me by releasing others in a way that is loving and lowering expectations. I needed to do that. But I've had better relationships since that release, since that letting go, essentially. Freeing others to be who they are and allowing God to let me be comfortable with who I am, that I can genuinely be whole, not lacking for anything when I come into contact with people. And I'm free to be their friend. And they feel free to be mine in a way that I have released them, and it's very healthy, very good. And now I'm experiencing deeper friendships.
That's such a good testimony, Mindy. That's such a hopeful thing, because I think so often we quit too early.
We want to. I want to. I have. And then I'm like, well, what? I mean, I can't stay this way. Like I can't. This is miserable all by myself.
Yeah. And this is common to all age groups, whether you, it doesn't matter. And I don't know, I wish we could have like an episode on men's friendships, because I don't know if they go through so much of this, but this is common to all females, whether they're young, middle, old, it doesn't matter. I mean, my mother has said before, you would think that, in your 70s, women would be beyond this stuff, but they aren't. Like, it just never ends. So if you're not experiencing it right now, you'll probably experience some friendship difficulties later, and you'll also experience some highs too. I mean, it's an up and down lifelong process, but I love that you have kind of encouraged us to look at it again and get new perspective and kind of go back to level set. And what do we need to be doing, and what should our attitude be? Because that is where we're going to find the most success. Well, listeners, we would love to hear your thoughts on this, because I know that you have some. And we'd love for you to find us on Instagram at Midlife Matters Podcast, or email us at midlifematterspodcast@gmail.com, and tell us, like, maybe some of your friendship success stories. Tell us maybe some of your recovery tools. We want to encourage each other. We want to let other people know that we're all in this. We all experience it. And it was great to talk with you about it today, Mindy, because I find just hearing about other people's experiences so encouraging.
Well, you too. And I appreciate this conversation with you very much. And Julie, we really missed you this week and can't wait to talk to you again.
I know. Yes. Well, before we go, we want to do I'm a Fan. All right, Mindy, what are you a fan of this week?
Okay. One thing that has never let me down is yard work.
You love your yard work.
Okay. I have found this is not like a new plant, but it's new to me.
Oh.
And I'm so happy that we have found something that we can plant in our yard that really is deer resistant, because all the other deer resistant things we've planted have been eaten by deer.
Oh, okay.
So this is a flowering, it's actually a perennial down south. It's called lantana.
Oh,
and it comes,
I love lantana.
Oh, it's beautiful. It comes in a variety of colors. It can be more of a ground cover, or it can grow taller depending on the variety. I love all the colors that it comes in. So this is my new favorite plant. I'm looking for it in all the stores because it will actually bloom, bring joy to my yard, and it will come back every year.
Oh, okay. Now that's so interesting. That is the difference between zones, because ours will not come back. Once ours gets hit by a frost, it won't come back. And also, I don't know that I was just at Lowe's yesterday trying to find some plants, and I don't know that I ever see lantana around here unless it's the spring. I don't think anyone plants it in the fall here, because as soon as the frost hits. So are you able to plant it now in your zone?
I am.
Okay.
I am. And so I am testing it in the yard. It also depends on how much sun it's getting in your yard, in the zone that you're in. But I spent a lot of time talking to a horticulturalist the other day about the lantana, and I can't really find it right now. I'm having a hard time. I would like to buy more, but because it doesn't always come back for everyone, you won't necessarily find it in nurseries.
Okay. Yeah.
During this time of year, like you said.
Right.
But I, however, am planting it as soon as I can find it.
Well, I know that in the spring around here, like as soon as it comes out, like the good colors go fast.
Oh, it's so pretty.
Yeah. So there is a wide variety of colors. So it is a good one. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, good. Good. All right. I'm a fan this week of a travel backpack that I bought to go on our recent trip to London and Paris. And I wanted to get something. I knew Julie's told us a million times on the podcast to travel light. And so I was only taking a carry-on suitcase, and then I took this backpack with me. And I found it on a different Facebook community. Someone had asked about a travel backpack, and a few people had recommended this one on Amazon. So I thought, well, I'll just order it, see what it's like. The things I liked about it were that it has place for a couple pairs of shoes, like in their own bag, which is nice.
Whoa.
Because sometimes shoes can be kind of hard to pack in your suitcase.
Yeah.
It has spots for wet and dry things. It has a laptop spot. It had a lot of different pockets, a lot of different places, and it had a lot of different colors. And on Amazon, I got the large one, and that fit under the airplane seats. I don't know if I would have wanted the extra large. But right now, the large is only $26. So you're not investing a ton in this backpack.
Wow.
But I really felt like it did a great job traveling. I'll put a link in our show notes. I would say that you can fit, you can pack your clothes in it. It's kind of like a portable suitcase on your back, maybe. That's what I would compare it to.
Yeah. What's the name of it, Marie?
Well, you know how Amazon has those different kind of names.
Weird names. Yes.
Wonhox. WONHOX. So not like Osprey or something that we've all heard of before.
Yes. Which is why it's only $26, right?
I know. And it says you can apply a 5% coupon, which is awesome.
Bonus.
So, yeah.
Oh, that sounds amazing. And I know that we are all excited to see pictures from your trip.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm just so thrilled that you and Steve made it over there.
Yes, listeners, if you followed, we were going on a 30th anniversary trip, and we also moved this past month, and we weren't sure if we were going to do it. But since we'd never been, I really didn't want to cancel, and I really am glad that we didn't. So it worked out well.
Oh, I'm so excited for you guys. Yeah. And it just looked amazing too.
It was really good. So, all right. Well, Mindy, thanks for being vulnerable and leading the charge on this conversation. And I know that it's going to be an encouragement to people. And I know that it was already encouragement to me.
Thanks, Maria. It was a very enjoyable conversation. I appreciate it.
All right. Well, we'll talk to you next week.
Sounds great.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
We're so happy you joined us today. You can find the show notes for this episode at midlifematterspodcast.com. Also, please tell a friend about the show and help them hit the free subscribe button on their favorite podcast app. Be sure to follow us on Instagram at Midlife Matters Podcast. That's where we post pictures and stories about all the things we talk about in each episode. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.